Hi guys, it's Mrs. Cotlis, and as promised, I'm going to go through our entire lesson for this week with you. I know that in class we did some grading together, which is great because it's always good practice to look for those dress ups in other people's papers, but that didn't give us as much time as I wanted to do lesson 28, which is Renaissance Men. And so this is going to be another long report. So we're going to spend a couple weeks doing this. And so I want to make sure that you guys really understand what we're doing, okay? So what we're doing first is you need to pick 3 topics for your Renaissance Men paper. As I mentioned, the book suggests using Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael, but you can also use the Blackline Masters, which I'll send the link to, and I think it's Galileo and Copernicus are the 2 that you can pick from if you'd like to do something else. Doing Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael lets you pick Renaissance men who were all artists, but if you would like to do Renaissance men in different areas, then you can definitely add in others. Okay, so then in class, we read Source 1, and Source 1 was just to familiarize you with the Renaissance, and it would be really helpful when we get to our introduction for you to have some of that background. Now, if you're in the history class, that you've probably got a lot of background on it, but we're just reading this for information, okay? Next, we've got Source 2. And so what we were doing with Source 2 is a keyword outline. And again, this is not going to be every sentence. This is going to be just the things that we think are super important. So let's take a look at it, shall we? Okay, so our keyword outline gives us 8 lines. Okay. Leonardo da Vinci was born in the small town of Vinci on April 15th, 1452. He is one of the greatest painters of all time. However, he was not only a marvelous painter, but also an ingenious inventor, a brilliant scientist, a cunning military engineer, a botanist, and a mathematician. Okay, I've got this giant whiteboard, so I'm going to have to lay it down to write, but you can write right along with me, and when we're done, you can take a screenshot of this if you want to. So this is Source A, or Source 2, however you want to label it, and it's Chelsea. All right, so 1. I'm going to just start off with Da Vinci, and I'm going to abbreviate that Da V. Born 1452. And then my second thing is going to be that he's a painter, scientist. I'm going to include botanist there because botany is just the science of studying plants. And mathematician, I'm going to do a couple of different math signs. And inventor. Okay, so this is what I've got. Let's see if I can twist. There we go. Okay, so Da Vinci was born in 1452. He's a painter, a scientist, mathematician, and inventor. As a child, Leonardo had very little education. At the age of 14, he was apprenticed to a great artist in Florence named Verrocchio. While under Verrocchio's care, Leonardo learned many workshop skills. He was taught painting, sculpting, drafting, metalworking, plaster casting, and carpentry. One day, Verrocchio asked Leonardo to paint an angel in the painting The Baptism of Christ that they were working on. When Verrocchio saw how skillfully Leonardo had painted the angel, he put his brush down and swore never to paint again. That seems a little bit like an overreaction, but okay. So 3, he didn't have much education. He was an apprentice to Verrocchio. So that's going to be my 3. And then 4, so skilled. Verrocchio did not. I'm going to draw a paintbrush here. Okay. So he didn't have much education. He was an apprentice to Verrocchio. He was so skilled that Verrocchio said he was never going to paint again. That's a paintbrush. You can do it how you want. That's how I'm doing it. All right. Leonardo had a passion to portray things as realistically as possible. He sketched incessantly and studied animals, plants, and people intently. He went to hospitals to watch operations and visited morgues to dissect bodies in order to understand human anatomy. That's kind of gross. It's not super important, but I'm going to include it. 5, studied people at, I'm going to draw a big hospital, and I'm going to draw a coffin. As a painter, he is best known for his ability to use shadows and light to achieve perspective and depth. This is evident in the painting he is best known for, the Mona Lisa. So, light, I'm going to draw a sun, depth, Mona Lisa. The painting of an unknown woman has intrigued the world for centuries. Her mysterious smile and eyes that seem to follow observers no matter where they stand make the painting the most famous painting in history. So I'm going to change Mona Lisa =, famous. And I'm going to do the greater than sign to show it's the most famous. The Last Supper is another of Leonardo's famous paintings. It took him 3 years to complete. This painting depicts Jesus in the upper room with his disciples. He has just told them that one of them will betray him. Shock and horror can be seen on the disciples' faces. This beautiful work of art is the most reproduced painting of all time. Truly, Leonardo da Vinci is one of the greatest painters who ever lived. Okay, so Last Supper. Three years. And reproduced. And again, I'm going to use the greater than sign to show that it's the most reproduced. And then I've got one more line. And I'm going to do Da Vinci =, one of the greatest. I'm going to do a paintbrush again for painters ever. Okay, so this is what I've got. Let's see if I can, there we go. So, Da Vinci was born in 1452. He was a painter, scientist, mathematician, and inventor. He didn't have much education, but he was apprenticed to Verrocchio. He was so skilled that Verrocchio said he would never paint again. He studied people at hospitals and even in the morgues. His use of light and depth on the Mona Lisa made it the most famous painting ever. His painting, The Last Supper, took him 3 years, and it is the most reproduced painting of all time. And Da Vinci is one of the greatest painters ever, artists ever. Okay, so that's source number 1. I'm going to just set this. Let's see if I can do this so that you can see the whole thing. I'm going to set it right here. If you need a minute to copy, go ahead and pause this video and you can copy all this down. Okay, so now we're going to go on. Savannah, can you hand me that eraser? And we're going to go ahead and move on to, I'm going to take a picture of this so that when we go on, I have it. We're going to go on to our next source. Okay, so you want to erase that? Thanks, babe. All right, so our next source is The Ultimate Renaissance Man. It's the next page, and that's by Lori Verstegen. I'm never sure how to say her name, but she's the author of our book, so we've read sources by her before. Okay, so this one's called The Ultimate Renaissance Man, and again, we've got 8 lines to keyword outline. Ooh, Savannah's going to be my helper now. Let's see, Savannah. If you scoot this way just a little, they can see it a little bit better. Okay. Leonardo da Vinci has been called the ultimate Renaissance man because he had so many interests and talents. In fact, he may have been the most multi-talented person to have ever lived. He studied anatomy, astronomy, botany, and geology. In addition, he sketched plans for hundreds of machines and inventions ahead of his time, like a flying machine and a parachute. Okay, so we're going to start here, and we're going to say 1. I'm going to turn, Savannah, since you're holding for me. I'm again going to use the Da V for Da Vinci. And he was, what did we see? Anatomy. So I'm going to draw stars and the moon. Studied anatomy. Oh, sorry. Anatomy is people's bodies. That's astronomy, which is the next thing. Anatomy, I'm going to draw a person. Botany. This is a flower. And geology, I'm actually just going to write geo for geology. Okay. In addition, he sketched plans for hundreds of inventions and machines ahead of his time. 2, inventor. Flying machine. And a parachute. That's my parachute. There's the little person on the parachute. I'm such a good drawer.
I like it.
I don't know why I don't teach art.
I know, right?
I know. However, Leonardo was trained to be a painter, and that is what he is most remembered for. In the 1460s, while just a boy, he was apprenticed to Andrea del Verrocchio, a prominent painter and sculptor in Florence. Leonardo helped Verrocchio paint the baptism of Christ. From 1478 to 1482, Leonardo had his own studio but never finished an important work there. He moved to Milan to be a court artist for the Duke. Okay, we're going to back up. So, helped Verrocchio paint baptism of Christ. So then, this is new information. He moved to Milan to be the court artist for the Duke. Court artist, Duke, Milan. There he painted his earliest works that have survived in complete form, Madonna on the Rocks. He worked hard to make his paintings look real. He gave them depth and correct proportion, unlike the paintings of his day that were flat and out of proportion. So, realism. That's what it's called when you're trying to make something look real. It's called realism. And,
you could be Da Vinci, I know.
I know.
Like,
Painted Madonna on the Rocks. 6. In Milan, he also painted one of his most famous works, The Last Supper, on the wall of a monastery. Leonardo developed his own technique for this painting. He wanted to be able to work slowly and carefully to make it realistic. However, the scene soon faded and began to flake. The Last Supper, which is a true masterpiece, has had to be restored many times and is still in poor condition. Well, that's interesting. Last Supper. It's flaky, and that's sad. In 1499, Leonardo returned to Florence. There he painted what is perhaps the most recognized painting of all time, the Mona Lisa, so 1499. In this painting of a woman with a mysterious smile, Leonardo broke from the traditional method of painting portraits, which was to show only the head and chest, because this made his subjects look cut off. Leonardo included the woman's hands folded on her lap, which gave her a more complete, natural appearance. So she's known for her smile and her eyes, and you can see that's an eye. Her hands in the painting. That's a hand. You're welcome. All right, and number 8. In his later years, Leonardo did not paint much, but instead sketched many ideas for inventions that became some of his most famous works. In 1517, he moved to France at the request of the king, who wanted to have famous Renaissance men in his land. Leonardo died near Tours, France, 2 years later, so 1517. 17, he goes to France, sketched, and didn't paint. That's my paintbrush again. All right, so now we've got our 2 different outlines. And again, if you need to copy this down, push pause. I know you're never going to be able to recreate my fantastic sketching skills, but you can try, okay? And then what we're going to do is we are going to put these 2 together. So you're going to go in and you're going to do the fused outline, okay? So let's do that together. And I'm going to be using source 2 off of my phone and source 3 off of this board that Savannah's holding for me.
You're welcome.
I know, you're awesome.
Wait, no. I should be thankful that I've held a piece of your beautiful art. Right?
So true. Logan, can you grab me a pencil or a pen?
Right. Oh, you don't need this. Yeah, we need
Yeah,
this.
you're just going to hold that up because we're going to do this and I'm going to write it on here and then I'll write it on the board.
Is this...
Okay, so when we're looking at the 2 outlines, okay, our source from Chelsea and our source from Lori both start with the fact that, well, actually, our first source started with that Da Vinci was born in 1452. Now, that makes sense to start with, right? He's born in 1452 in Italy, and that's some good background for us. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there, but that's not what I want to start with. I think what I want to start with, thanks, Logan, is that Da Vinci was a Renaissance man, meaning that he knew how to do a lot of things. So topic A is going to be Da Vinci is a Renaissance man with many talents. Okay, then I'm going to go back to where he was born. So I'm going to combine that he was born in Italy, didn't have a lot of education, and was apprenticed. So born in 1452, Italy. I'm going to do edu for education and cross it out for not a lot. And then apprenticed to Verrocchio, which I'm going to abbreviate, okay? So then we want to go on and we want to talk a little bit about that. And so we have that he helped Verrocchio paint the baptism of Christ, and we know that from that painting, Verrocchio decided he was never going to paint again. So I'm going to combine those 2. Helped, I'm going to do a paintbrush. Baptism, I'm going to abbreviate, of Christ. And that's a title, so I'm going to put it in quotation marks. Verrocchio, I'm going to do quotation marks showing that he said, or you could do a speech bubble. Never going to paint again because he's so talented. And then I've combined those. Okay, my next thing I've got is that he moved to the court to be the court artist of the Duke of Milan. And then on my other one, I've got he studied people in hospitals and morgues. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add the part about the court artist of the Duke of Milan. So he went to Milan, court artist for Duke. Okay. While he's at the court of Milan, he is working on realism, and realism again is making things look realistic, and so we're going to combine that with his study of people in hospitals and morgues. So Madonna on the rocks. I'm going to draw rocks under Madonna and put it in quotes so that I know it's the name. Realism and hospitals. Again, I'm going to draw a hospital with the Red Cross symbol on it, / I'm going to do a coffin so I know he studied dead people.
That's cool.
So cool. Okay. Next, on here I have his Last Supper, which he did in Milan, which is flaky, which is sad. On my other one, I have The Last Supper took him 3 years and is the most reproduced in the world. So let's do that next. So in Milan, I'm going to put it in quotes so I know it's the name of the painting, Last Supper. 3 years. Flaky, sad face. And then I'm going to move on to my next line, which is 6, and I'm going to say most reproduced. So reproduced, and I'm going to use my greater than symbol to show that it's the most reproduced. And I'm going to put LS so I remember that it's the Last Supper. And then also, this is where he did his most famous. So 1499. Mona Lisa, and I'm just going to do ML and put it in quotes. And that's his most famous.
I was pointing towards the line we were at, and I smudged your beautiful.
You smudged my beautiful hand. All right, so now we want to talk about why the Mona Lisa is the most famous. The Mona Lisa is the most famous. So again, I'm going to start line 7 with ML in quotation marks. Famous for her eyes. So I'm going to put an eyeball. She's famous for her smile. So I'm going to put a smile. And she's famous for showing her hands. I will take a little more time on my hand in this book. So maybe you guys won't laugh at me so much. All right.
That looks so nice.
So then my next thing on here, on our first source, is that Da Vinci is one of the greatest artists of all time. And then on here, I've got that in 1517, he went to France. So I'm going to combine those. In 1517, he went to France. And he was... he didn't really paint anymore, so I'm going to put that. Didn't paint. Sketched inventions. And he died in France. I didn't have that on my keyword outline, but I'm thinking I want to add it, so it's okay for me to make that decision. Like if I'm doing this and I'm like, you know what, I gave the year he was born, I didn't put the year he died in my original keyword outline, but I really want it, I can go back and get that, so that's okay. So it says he died near Tours, France 2 years later, so he moved there in 1517, that means he died in 1519, and we need a clincher for this. So I'm going to do Da Vinci was the model of a Renaissance man because of his many talents. So here's what that looks like for me. You can put that down, Savannah. So here's what I ended up with. You can, again, pause it, and you can take a screenshot of this if you need to and go ahead and put it down. So my fused outline. Da Vinci was a Renaissance man with many talents. He was born in 1452 in Italy. He didn't have much education. He was apprenticed to Verrocchio. He helped paint the baptism of Christ. Verrocchio said, "I'm never going to paint again." He went to Milan, and he was the court artist for the Duke. He painted Madonna on the Rocks, which showed realism, which he got by studying people in hospitals and morgues. Also in Milan, he made The Last Supper, which took 3 years and is super flaky, which is very sad. The Last Supper is the most reproduced painting of Da Vinci, And in 1499, he made the Mona Lisa, which is the most famous painting in the world. The Mona Lisa is famous because of her eyes, her smile, and the fact that she has her hands showing. In 1517, Da Vinci moved to France. He didn't paint anymore, but he sketched inventions. He died in France in 1519. Da Vinci was the model of a Renaissance man because of his many talents. Okay, so this week, what you're going to do is you're going to go through next. Okay, so you've seen how we did that. Now you've got source 4 for topic B. This is about Michelangelo. And then what you're going to need to do is, if you're doing Michelangelo, if you want to do one of the artists off the Blackline Masters, that's fine. But you're going to follow the same format. They're giving you one source, and then you need to find another source. If you are taking history this year, medieval history, use your textbook. Brilliant. You've already got it, okay? So you'll do the same thing we just did with the source from the book, your second source, and then you'll go ahead and do the fused keyword outline. So you need to do that on your own. I can't do that for you because I don't know what source you're going to use. I don't know actually what person you're going to use, so you need to do that. Okay. So then you're going to you need to go ahead and you need to write a paragraph about Da Vinci, and you need to do the keyword outlines for Michelangelo or whoever your second topic is going to be, and you need to do a paragraph for that. So you're going to come back with 2 paragraphs. The other thing you need to come back with is at least 2 sources for whatever C is going to be. So that can be your textbook and an encyclopedia article that you print out. That can be a book about one of them. That can be an article from a scholarly journal about one of them. But you need to bring 2 sources, at least 2 sources for your topic C next week to class. Thanks, Savannah. Okay, so again, you are going to do the keyword outlines for Michelangelo or whoever your second topic is, and you're going to bring sources to class for your topic C. Okay? If you have any questions, please email me. When you're doing your draft, you need to go all the way to page, I think it's 207. Let me check. Yes. So this is the checklist you need to do when you're doing your draft for your body paragraphs. Now, obviously, you're not going to have all 3 paragraphs done, but that's okay. Still use this checklist to make sure that you're doing everything for your draft paragraphs, okay? So I will see you guys in class next time. I hope that you have a good weekend, and I hope this is helpful. And if you have any other questions, please don't ever hesitate to email me or Mrs. White. Just remember, we want your drafts by Sunday if you want us to look at them. Have a great week, you guys. I'll see you in class.